Come on up. Welcome to Baymore Stables Presents Chatter at the Bit. Today's topic is very sensitive and it causes a lot of arguments, which I can understand. When you're passionate about something, you want to argue it and make it right. And that is horse slaughter in Canada only. Now, I want to be very clear with this. I am not against horse slaughter, but I also will never send one of my horses to slaughter. It's something I can control within my range, and I will. But am I against it in Canada? No, I'm not. It's kind of a dirty secret in the industry, but kind of a necessity too. So we're going to start with everybody's favorite thing, kill pens. Now, I know people who maybe don't have as much experience say, oh, kill pen, we got to jump on that. There is no kill pens in Canada. We have auctions. We have live public auctions where anybody can go and bid on the animal coming through the ring. The big one is Olex in Kitchener, and I mean, I've bought horses out of there several times. And it's not a matter of embellishment to some of these rescuers. It's all about lying. Because you sit there and you go, okay, well, I outbid a meat buyer. Yeah, but you also outbid probably the other 50 to 100 people that are sitting there bidding too. It's not just between two people. So the embellishment is to get the hook. And it's what I call, and this is my opinion, it's what I call the hook. As soon as you have their interest, it's like, oh, well, I'm taking this horse out of the kill lot. You're buying a horse at auction. That's all you're doing is buying a horse at auction. Might he be in rough shape? Maybe. No worse than I've seen people sitting in the field. You have to have the realistic part of it. And auctions are just that. It's a place where people can sell horses. Now, I don't know when it changed to be shameful to sell a horse, but I don't care if you're taking a horse to auction. You don't have to explain yourself. But what really pisses me off is when they come back with, this is a breeder issue. It's like, in what world is it a breeder issue? It is a human issue. If somebody wants to send their horse to slaughter, that's on them. It's not on the breeder or overbreeding. It's people. And people wanting money. And it really infuriates me when they'll come back and say, well, it's a breeder issue. It's like, I had an argument with one person where a horse was sold, a thoroughbred stallion was sold for extremely good money to China. Well, after 3 years of breeding, the owner in China decided that the horse wasn't producing the way he thought, and he sent it for meat. And everybody jumped on, it was the breeder's fault. It's like, how is it the breeder's fault? He sold the horse in good conscience for good money, and what they chose to do with their product is not on him. And it's what I call the humanizing factor of the horse industry. It's what I call, you want to assign it. It's a people issue. It's a people wanting to make money. Now, here's the reality of a very sensitive topic. Horse slaughter in Canada. 85% of the horses that are slaughtered in Canada are exported. Canada is the 8th largest exporter of horse meat in the world. But there's restrictions. It is governed by CFIA. And I deal with CFIA all the time because I work in customs. CFIA is difficult. Now, there are restrictions to bringing a horse for slaughter. There are stringent details that must be followed. And before anybody steps up and says, oh, well, that can be forged. Yeah, of course. That's why banks get broken into. That's why identities get stolen. Anything can happen. But the monetary penalty for lying on a declaration with CFIA can sometimes start at $25,000. So you want to put that on a $400 horse? I don't think so. So the first thing they require, all horses that come in for slaughter, is they have to be accompanied with an EID form, which is an equine information document. And it states pretty much the horse's color, the breed. If the registration papers are there, the registration papers should be attached, to which CFIA then sends them to the association. But what it also states is a declaration of medical history, which means is you have to state that that horse that you own has not had any drugs or vaccinations, including bute, within the last 180 days. And it also states the proof of residency. You have to state on an EID form that you have had this horse for minimally six months, and this is the proof of residency. With that being said, these kill buyers that are going to the auctions, and I mean, they have a job to do. They got a quota to fill. They got a budget. They are licensed agents. I have zero issue with any kill buyers. But you have to realize, this is the reality of the matter, and this is where the rescuers get the hook in, is if a kill buyer is buying a horse at auction, and it doesn't come with an EID form, and I'll be the first one to say, I didn't know what an EID form was. I just found out about 5 years ago. I've never sold a horse with an EID form. And so that kill buyer is buying that horse. Now, probably 99% of the time, he does not have the required EID form. With that being said, that means that kill buyer has to take that horse home, and he has two options. He can either sit on that horse for 6 months and feed it so that he can declare the EID honestly, because it must be signed and dated, and it also must be approved by a vet. Or he has to go home, look at it, and possibly rehome it and resell it. And that's what our kill buyers in Canada do, is they know they can't send it out right away. So you can always approach a kill buyer and say, you know something, I really like that horse. I just kind of, can we work a deal? 99% of the buyers out there will absolutely work a deal. Because it's money. It's money and it's a business. That's the reality. And you have to, that EID form is quite important. And I know you're going to get the people saying, oh, well, something, shut up. This is facts. This is not bullshit. This is the facts of what's required by CFIA. I can guarantee you on the time, I'll give you an example. I meat loads coming into Canada. I do a lot of them. And you have to have what they call a safe food license. Any person importing or exporting to Canada, any goods that are going to be consumed and or in part directed for human consumption must apply to CFIA for a safe food license. It is required for all importers and exporters that are import and export food or food products. Meat is included in that. So one of our clients say they import meat to Canada all the time. And they have a safe food license. They've had it for years. And 3 times this weekend, I have had to email CFIA, because you can't call them. They don't want to answer the phone. I have had to email them saying, hey, you made a mistake. This safe food license is correct. You need to correct it. Within about 3 to 5 hours, they generally come back saying, oh yeah, send it to me now. Well, in the meantime, they have held up my truck. They have held up me from going to bed. They have put everything on hold for their mistake. And you trust me when I say you don't want to get snotty with the CFIA, because they'll put you to the bottom of the pile. They don't care. But they make mistakes too. It is very stringent. To bring anything into Canada, there has to be appropriate paperwork. It must be filled out properly. It must have all the required information. So it is time. And for exporting, it's even worse. It is just, you have more paperwork than you have underwear. So everybody who's importing to Canada must have a safe food license. And that goes for exporters too. So if Canada is exporting 85% or 95% of their meat, horse meat, there's a lot of paperwork and there's a lot of fees to that. And everything must be assigned and approved by a veterinarian, not a secretary, not an animal care aide, not a vet. It must be signed by a DVM, and it must be original. So And horses, and then you kind of sit there and go, okay, well, that's kind of a pain in the ass. You're right, it is. It's a business, and it's run like a business. Cattle are the same way, and now we go into the horses coming up. I've heard many people say, oh, well, they come up from the States and they go straight to the kill pen. Well, that's not right. Not right at all. It's, when it comes to shipping horses from the States into Canada for slaughter, is the USDA, the horses must have, the requirement is they must have, its live animals, must have what they call a zoo sanitary certificate, which is, again, it's only good for 30 days, so you must ship within that 30 days. It is another government declaration, and it has to be signed by a vet. Every horse must have a zoo sanitary. And we get them all the time. It's a matter of form. Now, these are all, you have to remember, these are all declarations of truth. And no responsible agent for these kill plants are going to try to finagle over a $400 horse. There's a lot of paperwork to be involved. And you have these people that, you have the kill buyers that are sitting on horses for 3 to 6 months because they don't have an ID. In order to take a horse to the meat plant, they have to have a valid, truthful EID. So with that being said, you kind of sit here and go, okay, well, it's not as easy as that. Because people like to embellish. People like to be mad at something. Do I think that they will put an end to horse slaughter? No. But better yet, if you're going to advocate to stop horse slaughter in Canada, what's the alternative? What is the game plan? And that's all I'm saying. If you can come up with a reasonable alternative, and I don't want to hear horses deserve to live their life out in luxury. Great. Let me know when you pull out your frickin' checkbook and you have the 1,000 acres to run 1,000 horses on, then you can have that opinion. But if you're sitting behind a desk or you're sitting in an office saying, hey, we need to stop slaughter because horses deserve, stop watching Flicka, stop watching these horse movies that everything ends good, because what's going to happen to these horses? And you have to, it's a business. They're livestock. Whether you choose to admit it or not, they are livestock. They are something that have been for years, before man. They have been side by side with men for transportation, for food, for protection. Even in World War I, where over 8 million horses were sent to war, and 6 million of them died. Almost 61,000 at the end of World War I were sent for slaughter because there was no use for them. They had no use. But what it did do, and I know you're going to say, oh my God, 61,000 horses. But look at it this way. World War I was fought in France. France was devastated by the war. The farms and everything, they had nothing. They had no farmland. They couldn't put in crops. And the World War, some of the officers actually donated horses to help the French farmers and to have horses so that they could till their fields and stuff like that. But it also, they did a kill pen so that they could sustain themselves for the next year. And you may say that was cruel, but it was actually life-saving to many, many people. And that's kind of the way I look at it, is a horse is livestock. So then we go to out west. They have, the big hoopla about shipping horses to Japan. I read on one site where somebody said, well, the horses are put into crates and they're not allowed to lay down or anything. It's like, okay. Now, if everybody has seen the shot taken when the Olympics were, I think, in Australia, and the Canadian or U.S. team had all their horses on a plane to go to the Olympics, they were all just in standing stalls. They couldn't lie down. So you can't pick and choose what you think is right. It is very, in fact, there's very stringent regulations for shipping horses to Japan. Japan, they just want it all. But you cannot ship a horse in from the States to be shipped to Japan from Canada. The horse must originate from Canada. They must be, it's a whole list. If anybody wants, I can give them the list. But it basically, if you're going to breed horses, heavy horses for Japan, you got to make sure there's no crossbreeding. You got to make sure they're clean, healthy. They've had all the vaccinations. They've had all their blood pulled. They are up to date in their health certificate before they can even get on the plane. So if you think after putting that much money, and it's not cheap to rent the plane, I might add. Anybody who has shipped a horse from Europe it is not cheap to put a horse on a plane. So if they're going to go through all that to put a horse on a plane to Japan, I can guarantee you, when that horse arrives there, it better be in good shape or we're not going to be able to do it anymore. But the fact of the matter, people don't want to hear. People don't want to see. And it's kind of sad because, ideally, if every horse in the world could be saved, I'd be the one to go in for it. But it's not going to happen. But I'm more concerned about these people that have horses and shouldn't. The people that are advocating for no horse slaughter are people that don't have a freaking clue. They might have one, or they might partboard one, or they might be at a stable. And it's kind of redundant, their opinion, because they don't understand. I personally, Gregor and I, we spend about $20,000 a year in just hay. I have a good job. Gregor works full-time. He works a part-time job. We do this to support our horses. Do we have some bad luck? Yep. Do we have horses go down in weight? Yep. Do we have horses sometimes look like shit? Yep. And we work around, we increase their grain, we work around, we get the vet in. I have one right now, the filly, everybody knows little Lena. We had to wean her at 5 weeks because we had to euthanize her mother. And it was a sad situation to say the least because, we'd had her for 10 years. But Lena had to be weaned at 5 weeks. So she's got an umbilical hernia and she looks like crap. But she's just lately started with kind of a, I don't know. It's just she's not progressing as much as I would like. She doesn't have as much energy as what I would like to see in a yearling filly. So, of course, we got our vet out, and he's like, he pulled blood, and he went over her. He goes, there's nothing wrong with this filly, but she's not eating what I think she should be eating. She's not doing what I think, and the vet says, maybe she's just slow running. Maybe get a chiropractor out. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. But it's that like I'm still paying off an $1,800 vet bill. It's like that when you're in reality with your horses, that you can respect the need for horse slaughter. It is very humane how they euthanize the horses. They do not, and I want to stress this explicitly, they do not hold their heads and hope the shot goes through. No. Horses are flight animals, and CFI recognizes that. So there is a certain structure to slaughtering. They are done humanely. Whether people want to admit it or not, I've actually had the opportunity to go through the facility in Quebec. I was actually quite impressed. It was like, holy shit, this place is clean. I was like, wow. They used to have a kill pen up in Owen Sound called Barton Feeders. And you were allowed to take it, and this was before all the regulations came in, but you were allowed to take your horse right from your farm up to Barton's. And there was a couple times, I think I was 9 or 10, when my dad says, okay, get in the truck. And I'm thinking, cool. And we went up to Barton Feeders. I didn't know what Barton Feeders was. And so he goes, well, I'll go in, and there's the window. And I was like, okay. So he leads the horse in. It was an old mare. I forget why he was shipping her. I don't even know now. My memory's not that good. But he goes, he asked the one, his name was Jim. He says, you might as well, she's going to watch. And it's like, okay. So they led the horse in. There was about 5 or 6 of them in a kind of a round pen. And it was like, okay. And I thought that was kind of neat. And all of a sudden, they all fall down. It was like, what the hell just happened? And they made sure the halter was off. They made sure the shoes were all off. And they just basically electrocuted them on the spot, instant. Every horse was dead. And then they pull them off. They open the 2 gates and they start pulling them off. I chose not to see the rest of it, nor am I going to discuss it. But it was humane. Back then, it was humane. And it kind of gave me a harsh reality to, I can't correspond horses with the movies they put on TV because they are sugar-coated. And if you have horses, as much, and people run into the problem, and I don't know how many times it's said, it's like they got to put their horse down, but what do we do with the body? And it's sad and it's terrible. Thankfully, I have a farm, I can bury them, but what about the horses that, a lot of horses that are in the middle of life change and they can't afford to keep them. They can't afford, a divorce, a death, anything of that sort, where the people are going to run them to the stockyards because they don't have any other choice. Should they be ashamed to do that? I don't think so. Because it's a public auction. It's not a meat sale. It is a public auction. They can tell their friends, they can tell whatever, and say, and I know a lot of people that, listen, this horse headed to the stockyards in this day because I'm not doing this anymore. Feel free to go and buy it. And a lot of people do. So you kind of sit there and go, okay, because it's a public auction. If they're sending stockyard, it's same as Carson's is a public auction. Meat buyer's there. There used to have quite a few sales in Ontario. The meat buyer was there for the cheap ones, and that's what you have to realize is you don't know what's going on with that decision. But make no mistake, it is the people's decision. It is a decision made by the person who owns that horse. That is their choice to make. And you can fight and bitch and complain all you like. That's all well and good. But until I see some of these people that are beaking off, forking out their checkbook to go to auction and buy all these horses and feed them and look after them, shut your mouth. I've probably given away, over the last just 10 years, I've probably given away 20 horses. Because it's not about the sale with me, it's about the horse. And I know the one time, I had the one mare, it's just, she was adorable. We called her Magoo. And Greg and I, before we came to New Brunswick, we were in a tight spot. We didn't know which way was left. And I kind of had to reassess. I was sitting with, I think, 22 of them, and I couldn't bring them all. So a friend of mine, who I, to this day, respect to the utmost, is she goes, something, I can get a hold of this mare's breeder. What would you do? I said, if she'll take her, I'll let her go. And she goes, well, that's okay. I said, no. If she'll take her, I will bring the papers and sign them off. She's like, really? It's like, absolutely. Well, the mare went back to her breeder, and they were happy. I get updates all the time. I was happy, and that's my point. I could have shipped to the stockyards. Yeah, I could have. I chose not to. But that doesn't mean other people even have that choice. That doesn't mean that everybody else has the network that I have with horses. So, and it's same as the Mustang. Everybody's heard about the Mustang. Well, I gotta tell you, Indy the Mustang, I gave her away 2 years ago. I bought her. She was just, she's not one that can be in a bigger stable. So, I gave her away to a friend of mine. 2 years later, I'm looking at this Mustang, ears up, saddle on, and I'm going, holy shit. That's freaking incredible. And this girl has spent 2 years on Indy. And Indy is a pampered little pussy. Like, she's no wild pony. But that was another decision we made to benefit the horse. But some people don't have that option. And when you're beaking off about whether you should or shouldn't be selling a horse, you have to realize you don't know their situation. And it's not for you to judge. So then we're going to go back to the rescues, because they are the biggest scam in the industry, and I don't care what anybody says, is they like to go, lately they like to go out west and buy the cheap horses. And let me tell you, they are cheap. And then by the time they get them home, they'll tack they'll say $2,000 to $4,000 on this horse because they're saying, oh, it's vet cost and shipping and blah. Well, I'm going to enlighten you on something. I've shipped quite a few horses from Alberta. And you know something? It's never cost me more than $1,200. And they're bringing a whole truckload. So should you be dividing that per horse? So these inflated costs are because they need to make money. And there's nothing wrong with that. I have zero issue of people that want to make money flipping horses. But when you attach that hook to it, you're just a snake. It's kind of beyond ridiculous because it's not costing you $2,000 to bring the horse back per horse. It's costing you about probably maybe $4,500 total for the truckload to come back. So, and you divide that by say 12 horses, it's not coming out to $2,000 a horse. But what they're doing is they're adding that, well, I rescued this. I outbid the meat buyer. No, you didn't. You went to a public auction, you bought some horses. That's it. There's nothing to it. You went to an auction and bought some horses. And it's gotten out of control in Canada. It's like, okay, we have auctions. It's like, I had one person, this is going back, I think, last year. We just come to New Brunswick. And it was like, she says, well, I'm kind of looking for a project horse. It's like, I don't have nothing for you. Sorry to say. And it's like, well, I want something to project out, maybe a rescue. It's like, why would you be coming to me for that? I don't have rescues. Well, it's like, but people actually don't know the difference anymore. Let me tell you, reality. If you're looking for a project horse and somebody's asking $7,000 for a project horse, yeah, no. That is just them making money. Everybody makes a conscious decision to sell a horse. There is no shame in that. But if you're looking for a project horse, to me, the balance shouldn't be over $3,500. If you're looking for a rescue horse, check out the prices, or better yet, give the meat buyers a call because they're the ones that are going to treat you right. And there's, I think, 4 of them in Ontario alone, is you can give them a call and say, hey, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for something, and they will have what you want, and they will be honest about it. The worst thing you do is go to these people who are rescue facilities, because when you sit and do some research, and it's easy to do, you do some research, it's like they're asking $5,000 for a horse that they rescued out west. And they don't even know the breeding of it. Think about that. I kind of see issues. Does anybody else? But there's other ways you can go about it. And the reality is we have almost 200,000 horses in Canada that were listed as of 2019. And we have about 20 to 25,000 a year go for slaughter. What do you propose? If you are against slaughter, what do you propose to do with those 25,000 horses that clearly nobody wanted or were not saleable? Because they can't take them to meat if they are lame or bleeding. They're not allowed at the kill plant. Once a horse arrives at the kill plant and is approved, it's slaughtered within 4 days. That's the rules. So if they're bringing a horse that's lame or something, that kill buyer isn't taking them straight to the slaughter. He's taking them home because he knows he can't take them to slaughter without that EID. And that is such an important form. But what are the options? Some people don't know what options are out there. So I'm going to tell you, if you are that against slaughter, and you got to make a decision here. Are you against slaughter or making money? You can't have it both ways, because if you're in a tough spot and you need to get rid of your horse, the best idea is to go to your friends and network to find the horse a good home. It may be for free, it may be for sale, but be prepared to give that horse away. And if you say, well, why should I give it away when they can buy it? You can't have your cake and eat it too. What do you want to do? You want to make money, or do you want to prevent the horse from going to slaughter? It's real simple. It's an ABC equation that it's not difficult. And that's what people have to realize. If you want to sell your horse, there's nothing wrong. I don't care where you sell it. I don't care how you sell it. But if you are looking to insure and you're in a tough spot and you don't know these auctions to go to or anything like that, network people on as your friends, because every horse person knows a horse person, and you can network them. Like, you may have to take a discounted price, but if you are looking to rehome because you're in a tough spot and you want $7,000 on something that's 17 years old and has been a pasture ornament, give your head a freaking shake. The industry is finally coming around to where the horse sales part of it is becoming better for the first time in years. But we have to stop with this rescue shit. We have to look at them realistically. Horses are livestock. Whether you want to believe it or not, they are livestock. And you have to acknowledge that with livestock, you have dead stock. And that's the oldest statement in the book. With livestock, you have dead stock. And I know people are going to be saying, I'm a fucking crazy bitch. I got that. I probably am. Check out my facts. Don't take my word for it. Go to the CFAA website and look at the stats. Go to Agriculture Canada, and look at what's being done. But if you're going to keep listening to the rescues and the people that are beaking off, you deserve what you get, because it's just ignorance is no longer a defense any longer. So that's my rant about horse slaughter and what we should do or not do. If you're against horse slaughter, I would love to hear what your alternative is. If you don't have an alternative and you don't have horses and you don't intend to get more horses, my advice is then shut up. Figure it out. Don't shame somebody because they're selling the horse. You don't know their lifestyle. You don't know their trials and tribulations. You don't have the right to judge. You're not that special. That's all for today. Stay tuned.